Okay, so if nobody is in the last class, my usual system of teaching is that if I come to a new class, we'll try to do a kind of a recap of what we did in the last class. And I can remember that I demanded that you people should go and read slide 17 to 23 in the material that was given to you.
Okay.
So that when we come today, we'll be able to discuss the things, use 10 minutes to discuss the things that are in the slide. We don't really have time. By this weekend, we'll be concluding this class. So the essence is for us to fasten up so that you prepare for your exam. Since nobody was in class, let me try to rush through what we did in the last class. We try to understand what social work programming is all about. And we are saying that it is a process, of bringing out different interventions to be able to address different problems that is being faced by the consumers of social work services. And I made the point that the consumers of the social services are the people you know as the client. You either call them consumers of social work services, you call them service users, or you call them clients, whichever one you choose to use. That is best known to you. And we made the point that social work programming is all about the process of developing intervention strategies to be able to address the diverse challenges faced by the clients of the social worker or the consumers of social work services. And we made the point that these challenges can be found at the different levels of social work practice, whether you call it case work, group work, or community organization, or what most of the time we refer to as the micro, meso, and macro practice of social work. And we talked a lot about the fact that because it is social work programming, time has gone when an individual will think that he's going to provide all the services that is needed by the client of the social worker. So we begin to lay emphasis on what is called multidisciplinary approach or teamwork. We can work with different social workers from different fields to address a particular challenge or address a particular problem faced by a social worker. We can also work with different disciplines. I gave an example of a rape case as a case study, that if you are handling a case of that nature, you need to work with the social worker, you need to work with the police, you need to work with the medical doctors or those in the medical line, you need to work with a lawyer, just because you're handling a case of rape. So because of that, teamwork becomes very key in modern social work practice, and it is something that we cannot really do without. So we said a whole lot of things around teamwork, multidisciplinary approach, interdisciplinary approach. All of them are geared towards providing a holistic services. I repeat, all of them are geared towards providing a holistic services to the clients of the social worker, so that no aspect of the client life is left behind. So we try to explain what is social work, which is a profession that is set out to help people to be able to deal with their daily lifestyle task. And we made the point that as an individual or a people, we perform different life tasks. You people that are listening to me, you are a student, you are a child to somebody, or you are a parent to somebody, or you are an aunt to somebody. These different roles that you perform, put the responsibility of performing different tasks. Now, while trying to perform the task, your daily tasks on daily basis, you encounter some challenges. The social worker comes in between to help you to be able to address those challenges. It could be you may be having problem with a troubled child, a delinquent child that needs to be rehabilitated. You may have a son that is a drug addict or abuse substance, or you may have a child that's suffering from something like autism, or any kind of mental health challenge that is like a clog in the wheel of progress of your family. These are challenges. And I made the point, that is why in many social work textbook, we make reference to the fact that the social worker intervene at the point where the individual, interact with the environment. The social worker intervene at the point where the individual interacts with the environment. And in the environment, in this context, is the challenges the individual is facing while trying to perform his or her task. And we made the point that name, social worker. You must have the requisite training, the requisite skills, the requisite knowledge. You must abide by the ethics principle guiding the social work practice. If not, and be trained, certified, licensed. If not, what we are doing is philanthropy. And if you claim to be a social worker, if the law catches up with you, they will deal with you the way they are dealing with those who are impersonating people of other profession. So this is a kind of trying to make a summary of what we are able to discuss in the last class. Now, so let's make progress. At this point, did anybody need any kind of clarification? Because I was just trying to summarize what we did in the last class, and the materials are there for you to access. I think it has been posted on the platform many times, so you can make use of them. Now, if there is no question, I think we can continue so that we can buy as much time as possible. We're going to look at strategies for community development. Strategies for community development. So quite often, in our duties as social workers, we have to go beyond the identification of problems. I made that point in the last class. That is why I prefer assessment than diagnosis. When we talk about diagnosis, we're trying to find out what are the problems the client is facing. But when we are talking about assessment, we are looking at what are the problems the clients are facing. Then, what are the resources that is within the client system that you can use to solve the client problem? So assessment, look at the problem, look at the resources. Based on the fact that we work with the client, we don't work for client. So the client have some resources in which they are bringing to the table to be able to solve their problem. If you are not a good social worker, you focus on what will you do for the client. But if you are a very good social worker with the requisite skills, training, your emphasis will be, yes, this is the client of the, this is my client. What is the client bringing to the table? There are resources that is within the client system that can be used to address the client's problem. So I'm making the point that as social workers, when we perform our daily task, we go beyond the identification of what the problems are to suggesting practical solutions. The strategies we choose depends on the nature of the group or the client we are serving, or the client you are dealing with, or your projection of what is going to be the future of the problem, where you think the problem is going to lead the client. For example, somebody that is abusing substance, the danger may not be immediately pronounced, but as a social worker, once you see such a client, you will discover that the person is likely going to derail from the objective he or she has set for him or herself. So the following are some of the strategies we can employ while engaging in community development, because the whole essence of social work practice is to make the society better, to make services available to those who need it, the underprivileged, the underserved, those who have different forms of challenges. So, but because we work with the client, we don't work for client. It becomes very pertinent. Can somebody please warn Caroline Enyinaya? I think I posted in the platform that people should please mute their mic. Somebody should talk to Caroline Enyinaya. I don't like this issue of unnecessary muting your mic, interfering with what I'm saying. So one of the strategies for community development, the first one is organizing credit groups. From what we will be saying from now onwards, you begin to understand why we work with client, not for client. Organizing credit groups. The credit groups are groups of association of women, young people, or men that come together for the purpose of pooling financial resources. They come together, they pool financial resources, they make things like monthly contribution. And though the money contributed per month by each member is little, it amounts to a sizable amount when they are pooled together. It's like pooling resources together. You now have a kind of a well of resources, so that once there is any need, you go to that pool, you get some resources, you use it to solve your problem. Then this money that is pooled together is lent to some members at an interest. In modern time, many people call it, what they call it, a cooperative. But within the local palace, I think there is one they call Ajoy in the southwest of Nigeria. We have Isusu in southeast, Isusu Contribution Club. The beauty is that when you put these resources together, you have it as a pooled resources. Any member of the group that needed the resources will get some resources from this pool at a very minimized rate. Some go as low as 5%, and you may be required to pay a period of 1 year, 6 months, depending on how the group is organized. The whole essence is to make sure that the group have resources that they can fall back to anytime they have a financial need. Then the second one, strategy for community development, is what is called revolving funds. Revolving fund. We're going to explain why it is called a revolving fund. It is different from organizing credit group. Revolving fund, unlike the credit group, is where capital is raised by the members themselves in a revolving fund. The initial capital is secured from another source. So it could be a government source. It could be a philanthropist that is interested in maybe addressing a problem like unemployment. So he may put a particular amount aside that he wants to use so amount to help youth who have skills, but they don't have the startup kit or startup grant to be able to establish their skill into something that will become income generating. Some may need like 100,000, some may need like 300,000. The essence is that it may be a government scheme program. It may be a philanthropist that is interested in addressing problem of unemployment among the youth. So this money, because it's the revolving fund, is that not the members of the group, they are not the ones that raise this capital, but an outsider like a government or a philanthropist. Then they now share it among themselves. For example, somebody may pick it. If I'm in that group, maybe I have skill for barbing. I may pick it to open my barbing shop. Within 3 to 6 months, I must have recovered the money I took from the revolving pool. Then that money, maybe if it is 300,000, by 6 months, I must have, recovered the 600,000, put it back to the scheme. Another member who is in need of the money will pick it. Once the person's time matures, the person will return the money. And with it, we begin to establish for ourselves income generating activities. That is why it is revolving. It revolves around different members of the group. But the fund basically is from outside, either from a government scale or from a philanthropist. We now say that this capital is then lent to one person, and after he or she has paid it, it is lent to another. The group members act as supervisors because it is a group fund. The members knows when it is your own time to remit what is given to you. And by the time you are remitting, another person is on the line to pick that money to be able to establish his own business. Then the fund does continue to revolve around the group. As a social worker who is working with this kind of group, you have a duty to help them secure funds from the relevant agencies. You can help them. If it is a government, things like National Directorate of Employment, philanthropists that is interested in addressing one particular problem or the other, your responsibility as a social worker is to help them to secure funds from relevant agency. Then the third strategy for community development is what is called enterprise education. Enterprise education. You just ask the question, are you engaged in any money generating activity? Does it require special skill? Everything we do in life requires skill. If we don't have the skills to do the things we will do, we may get the millions, we may get all the money, but we may blow it within a period of time. So how do you acquire these skills? Look at the caption, the enterprise education. So to stimulate the unemployed or underemployed to become self-employed, education is often necessary. This education should seek to build the following. Education is necessary. In some parlors, they call it financial education or financial literacy. Things you do to be able to manage your finances very well. I had a very practical example while I was before I joined the academics, actually, while I was implementing an OVC program in Anambra State. So we are working with this group of women. Their problem is not that they don't have resources. They have their own resources. They put resources together on a monthly basis. But guess what happened? Every December, they share their resources. And the implication is that once they share their resources, they will use it to celebrate Christmas. So their yearly savings terminates at December to celebrate Christmas. By January, they begin to look for money to pay for their children's school fees. So for us, it didn't make perfect sense that people should blow their yearly savings in Christmas celebration. By January, their children will be going back to school. They will be looking for money. By around March, April, they will need crops to put into the ground to start their farming season. They are looking for where they are going to loan, to borrow money. You understand? So we worked with them. We now try to change their sharing formula from I to January or March. There are those who accepted January, those who are interested in using it to pay for their children's school fees. Then those who are interested in investing in agriculture, instead of going to borrow during planting season, those ones decided to shed tears during March. Financial education. Did we add anything to what they were doing? Did we help them to contribute money? We did not. But we were able to give them that information. That is why they say knowledge is power. How can you blow up what you have in December because you want to celebrate Christmas? By January, you begin to borrow money for your children's school fees. By March, you begin to borrow money to get crops to be able to plant or to pay those who are going to work in your farm. Doesn't make sense. So financial literacy. That is why we talk about enterprise education. So what does this enterprise education seek to do? We say that it seeks to build the following: the desire. It seeks to build desire, it seeks to build faith, it seeks to build vision. It seeks to, help you to do what is called action planning. And it also help you to develop a specialized knowledge, engage in what is called constructive association, that is the 61, then helping you to start your own business. Now, in desire, you cannot achieve anything unless you have a strong desire for it. Well, the desire must be there before you achieve anything. Enthusiasm is very important in enterprise education. You can stimulate desire by calling attention to the business opportunities available. So when you have that desire, once this business opportunity is available, you'll be able to grab it. And the benefit of self-employment, that desire. You are interested in working for yourself, you want to be self-employed, depending on what your interest is. But that your desire need to be activated. And once that desire is activated, you that is being worked on will do everything within your capacity to be able to actualize whatever intervention that is designed for you to succeed. The second thing the enterprise education does is that it helps to build faith, or what can be referred to as confidence. You have that confidence. This is the foundation for risk-taking. So you'll be able to take risk, be able to look at a situation and say that this is a very viable business opportunity. Let me take a risk. Let me invest in this. That is what enterprise education do for you. Help you to build faith, confidence, which is the foundation for taking risk to be able to invest. Now, faith is knowing that what you believe in will come to true or come to pass. That if you work towards it, that you are going to achieve it. You should believe that business idea will grow into business enterprises. Even when you start on a very small scale, when you're able to build your faith and you're able to look at what are the marginal income are you going to receive. You are receiving like 300 naira every day. If you are consistent with that, within 1 month, which is like 30 days, you multiply it by 300, it begins to grow. By that time, you get whatever proceed, you also reinvest it in other things. You begin to increase your capacity for interest. It also helps to build vision. Vision is your mission that you want to achieve. They should be able to visualize what they want to achieve. The more specific the vision you have, the higher will be the chances of achieving it. You don't need to have a very vague or very broad or very general vision. You need to be specific. You need to be definite that this is the vision that you want to achieve. So we're making the point that the more specific the vision is, the higher the chances of achieving the vision. So the next thing financial enterprise education does is that it helps in action planning. Action planning. It means that our clients need skills to transform their vision into action plan. So when you have that enterprise education, you should be able to know how to plan your action. Which step are you going to take? Do you require some skills in management before you start this business? You understand? Do you need an office space before you bring in your goods? At what point in time do you need to go and make purchase so that you can break even? Action planning. How much are you going to add to the things you are going to do little by little so that you begin to make progress? So how do you want to realize your dreams? The fifth thing enterprise education does is that it helps us to get specialized knowledge. I will make the point that action planning usually leads to a desire to acquire the knowledge and skill necessary for our vision. Accurate information can be acquired through your own experience and education. Your experience you have in life is one of the things that will help you to get specialized knowledge. Another thing that can help you to get specialized knowledge is the cooperation of others who are skilled. When you are working with people who are skilled, there is a saying that iron sharpeneth iron. So the people we are working with, when they have a specialized skill, you should be able to tap from the skills they have. Your business partner, even if it is your spouse or your partner, then you can employ others for you to get a specialized knowledge. It's not everything you may have the capacity to do. What it means is that you can employ others who are skilled in a particular area and you pay for their services because you believe that with the services that they are going to render, they are going to get, with the small token you are going to pay them, they are going to get a far better result if you do it yourself. You can also acquire this knowledge from relevant books and other reading materials. We are now in the age of ICT, so you can Google as many information online as possible. You can also take a special training course. Once in a while, you go for training. You go to people where you share ideas. You do cross-fertilization of knowledge. This person will bring his own perspective. This other person will bring their own perspective from different environments. And by the time you are able to do that kind of conglomeration of ideas, you become a better individual and a better person. The next thing it helps you to do is, the 61 is constructive association. Constructive association. In life, it is rare to achieve goals without the help of others. So, and this speaks to one of the values of social work, importance of human relation. Often we need others to realize our ambition. So what it means is that you need to form a master group, a group of people who master the things they do. You don't just form group for the sake of forming group. You form a master group. Those who have something to contribute. This can be business partners or employees. You need to need to gather around yourself a skilled, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic group. You become very lucky if the group is your partner or your spouse, so that you'll be able to, pull your ideas together and come out with something tangible. The next thing enterprise education does is it helps you to start your own business. Because you have that enterprise education, you know when to start. If there is need for you to acquire the necessary skill, you have gone to acquire the necessary skill. If there is need for you to do a kind of pilot study, you have gone to do a pilot study to know whether the business you want to open in an environment is viable within that environment. Location matters. If you have the right type of business and you located it in the wrong place, what it means is that the business is dead on arrival. So, the following are some of the questions which you may need to ask yourself in enterprise education. Do you want to be self-employed? If it is yes, you begin to work on how you want to become self-employed. Which business do you want to engage in? I think I've made that point. How much capital do you need? Very, very important. How much do you have? How much do you seek to get from others to be able to support you? You must have a foundation. You must have something you need to fall back to. For example, you don't just, if, for example, you need 100,000 to start a business and you don't have anything at home to eat, you need to take care of your feeding for like 1 to 2 weeks before you begin to talk about the 100,000. So that not when the 100,000 come, you put your hand inside it and begin to feed yourself and take care of yourself. It becomes very difficult for you. So you need to find out, how much do you need? How do you intend to raise this money? Are you going to borrow? At what interest are you borrowing? Are you getting it from a friend? Are you using government establishment? Are you going to borrow from bank? Be very careful with bank, so that they don't go and include a clause that you did not understand. By the time you finish borrowing, you discover that you have trapped yourself. Now, you also need to understand what is the existing market. I've made that point about siting and location. How many people want your goods or services? Who wants to get the services you want to render? Are there other people with whom you have to compete? Are there already flourishing kind of business that is similar to yours, that is already flourishing? How do you want to break even within that kind of environment? Are there any other similar undertakings? Where do you intend to locate your business? Is it strategic enough? Do you have the necessary knowledge, skills, and information to provide the goods or services? How do you, if you don't have the necessary services, the skills, how do you intend to acquire them? So these are some of the things you can look at. Now, the fourth, what led us to this enterprise education is the strategies for community development. And the third one was enterprise education, which we just finished discussing. Now, the fourth strategy for community development is viable economic activity. Viable economic activity. As a social worker who is working in the community, you can help in community development by mobilizing the people to participate in activities that pay. I prefer to use the word income generating activity. Some of you may refer to it as means of livelihood. In very simple language, the things you do to get money to take care of yourself. Sometimes traditional activities are not economically viable. Some people are bent on what their forefathers are doing. You need to do something different. You have a duty to alert people to alternative. Which other alternative is available within the community? Viable economic. That is why it is viable economic activities. It is not just any kind of economic activity. The ones that are viable, the ones that can pay. So you can achieve this by working with local leaders and other relevant agencies. Try to work with them to brainstorm. Education in the form of seminars, workshops, and conferences is of great help for you to be able to identify viable economic activities that is within the community. Mind you, if you're working in the community as a social worker, you may not come from that community. So working with these local leaders, local people, then looking at the resources they have, we're going to move into social mapping. and asset mapping. That is one of the things we're going to cover today. But when you are working in a community, it is necessary you work with some of these local leaders because they know where the resources are located. If you don't work with them, you may not know how best to be able to work on viable economic activities. Now, in conclusion on activities of community development, it is important to note that throughout history, men, we human beings, I don't know whether the student I taught at indigenous social work are here, they will be able to know this point. It is important to note that throughout history, men have tried to help one another solve difficulties. Men, from time immemorial, which is the root practice of social work, that men try to help one another to solve difficulties. That is the root work of a modern social work practice. To help those who cannot solve their problem to solve their problem. In African society, the wisdom of elders has always played a significant role in assisting members of community to resolve problems. Today, the advice of these leaders or council still has a big role. In instances where social work needs the advice of elders, local leaders, this should be welcome and encouraged. We are not coming to a community as a reservoir of knowledge, as Mr. Know It All. Mind you, if you are working as a social worker, you work with the client, you are not working for client. So problem solving is not an issue of one person can handle alone. It requires the support of all those considered vital in solving a problem. Social work helps to extend guidance services outside the school, which means children's home, parents, and community. And I'm going to look at management of social work programs. What are the things you need to do to be able to manage the different aspects of social work program that you design to be able to solve clients' problem or address the challenges that the clients of social workers are having? So, as a part of trying, can you begin? Can I get like 5 or 7 responses about the different problems the clients of social workers face on a daily basis? I think that may be calling your name. Adezenweke, can you give me one social problem that the clients of social workers face? Adezenweke. Adeze is not listening. Augustine Goswell. Augustine Goswell. Who is Big Daddy? Big Daddy, can you give me one problem the clients of social workers are facing?
Hello?
I can hear you. Who is this?
Yeah,
I can barely hear you.
Hello?
I can hear hello.
Problems. One of the problems worker faces is
The clients of social work, you are saying unemployment, is that correct? I can barely hear you. Maybe it's from your network, but can you guys hear me very well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
So maybe some people are in locations where they can hear, but when they want to speak, maybe there will be a network problem. So let's make some progress. If you have any question, you can put it on the chat. I hope you know how to do that, so that we make progress, because I can even barely hear the person that spoke. So let's make progress. We are talking about management of social work programs. How do you manage social work programs? Those programs you do to address the challenges facing the consumers of social work services or the clients of social work. The first thing you need to do is to establish clear lines of communication. Before embarking on social work programming, it is important first to establish clear lines of communication. Communication is very key in everything we do. You need to understand, I know you must have been taught two types of communication, both verbal and non-verbal. As social workers, most times we're interested in the non-verbal because sometimes your mouth will be saying a different thing, your body language is communicating another thing. So if you don't have that third eye to look at the non-verbal cue the community or the client is sending to you, you may take information from what the person is saying. You understand? Without knowing, you are actually addressing the wrong problem. So communication is very important. So, and it is important that during trying to establish lines of communication, that you delegate authority to agencies concerned. Different agencies provide different services. And one of the things too you need to understand, or you need to know as social workers, is your ability to maintain boundary in practice. Your ability to maintain boundary in practice. Trying to give people, for example, if you find yourself in a medical setting, I don't expect you to begin to give injection. That is not your duty. No matter how long you have been working in a hospital environment, if they catch you, they will withdraw your license, they may send you to jail. Your ability to maintain boundary is also very important. Ability to maintain boundary is also one of the things you can do to establish clear lines of communication. There is division of labor. Everybody should focus in the area where he or she is an expert. There is no issue of confusion of purpose. You bring this one, you bring this one, you become a jack of all trades and master of none. So often, when you are able to communicate in clear, set out a clear lines of communication, delegate authorities to agencies that are concerned, this is responsible for this. Only then can you draw support from the community you serve. If there is a women group that provides a particular service, you don't need to go and usurp the powers of the women group and give it to another group. If you do that, they will see you as somebody that has come to, turn around the status quo, and they may become very hostile. The second thing you need to do to ensure management of social work program is to make services accessible to the public. Make services accessible to the public. It is essential to stress the importance of making services. If services are available and those who need the services cannot access it, you are not doing well as a social worker. A lot of this happens in our community. Things like health facility. You go and see a doctor, the doctor will be in the office, probably with nobody. They will waste you like 3 to 4 hours before you see a doctor in a government hospital. You go to social welfare to report about a case, they waste the entire day for you. The services are available, but the people cannot access the services. So one of the things you do to manage program is to make sure that services are available to the public. If there are some what we call bureaucracy, bottleneck, or technicalities that prevent people from quick access to services, it is your duty as a social worker to be able to break those bureaucracy. There are places you go to before you get a service, you fill more than 1 million forms. There is an emergency for somebody to deal with, you are busy filling forms. There is somebody with a bullet wound that you need to, even if you mean to shame the person while receiving treatment, you can do that. People are looking for police report, and it's also good that I think recently has been passed into law that victims of gunshots should be able to receive treatment while waiting for police extracts. So you may be there trying to know whether the person is guilty as charged or not, blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, the person is dead. By the time they're announcing that the person is innocent, a life has been lost. So you need to make services accessible to the people. The next thing to do to be able to manage social work program very well is that social service staff need to see themselves not as self-contained unit. There are individuals that are so full of themselves. They feel larger than the work they do. They pretend as if the work they do means nothing to them, or they are not benefiting anything from the work they do. But we need to see ourselves as part of a network of services. Some are so full of ourselves that we see ourselves as messiahs. Begin to call rubbish any other intervention provided by other people, feeling larger than life. So we need to know that we are part of a network of services to the community. And what you are required to do is to do community service. You are not there to impose anything on any individual. So in the administration of social services, effective coordination with other services and individuals and mobilization of community resources are very, very important. You need to, if it is when you see yourself as part of a network of services and others were able to trust you, were able to build confidence with each other, then you'll be able to mobilize community resources and begin to use it to address the problems of your client. The next thing you need to do for management of social work program is what is called coordination. As a social worker, you are a coordinator. That is one of the roles you play in social work. You are a facilitator, you are an advocate, you are an enabler, you are a teacher, you are a broker, you are a coordinator, you know. So you are a case manager. Coordination is another important aspect of managing social work. Coordination is about the relationship between staff within and outside the agency. How do you coordinate your services? Some people are so bad that they cannot work as a team. Some are so terrible that they will bring their personal beef. We call it beef in Nigeria, personal problem. As a social worker, you may have disagreement with a colleague, but that does not prevent you from working as a team with that colleague. Once you finish providing the intervention that is required of you, you can go ahead and continue keeping your malice if that is what you want to do. So coordination, your ability, to build a good relationship with staff within, those who you are working with, and those who are outside, so that if there is need for referral, you can easily refer a client. Once they know you are the person doing the referral, this is one of us. They will take that person with all the utmost seriousness that he requires. So there should be a mechanism for coordinating the activities of field workers with other service groups. Where social work is a single individual responsibility, it reflects the absence of a formal coordinating mechanism. We've made the point again about the fact that social work will not be a single individual's responsibility. Teamwork is required. Multidisciplinary is coordination. You are coordinating. Sometimes your client may require services from the health facility. You help to coordinate that. Your client may require food supply. You go to those who supplies food. Your client may require psychosocial support. If you cannot provide that as a social worker, you look for someone that will do that. Your client may require some legal services. You are not a lawyer. You coordinate these things, make life very seamless for your client. So each country in sub-Saharan Africa has its own organizational structure for social work. So participants from respective state can best explain the structure of social work within their country. The way we are in Nigeria, we should be able to explain what works for us. What are the services for the elderly, the homeless? We need to know about Child Rights Act. Those things, we need to know about some acts like the Violence Against Person Prohibition Act, the implementing partner. If somebody is trafficked, where do you go for help? Those who are repatriated, the refugees, and all those places where people are displaced as a result of one reason or the other. Who are the organizations? Who are the bodies that are responsible for their welfare, for their shelter, for their safety? We need to be able to coordinate and work with all these people. So we're going to look at structure of social work within and outside the government. So we need to work even with those services that are provided by government and those that are provided by individual or non-profit making organization. It is important to know that outside the recognized government structure, there are a number of organizations such as churches and other non-governmental organizations which provide social work services. Such non-governmental organizations need to work hand in hand with government structures to ensure the success of their work. We are now talking about coordination, talking about collaboration, talking about, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, trying to make sure that everybody is, all hands are on deck to be able to provide a holistic service to the consumers of social work services. So one of the things you do, or one of the things you need to recognize as the structure of social work within and outside the government is what we call program evaluation. Program evaluation. Most time, because of the work we do, whether as social counselors, whether as human service professionals, we are constantly called upon to justify the effectiveness of the services. These services you render, how effective is it? That is where program evaluation, the things you do, I think it was Aristotle that a life not well examined is not worth living. We need to examine, evaluate from time to time the interventions that is being provided to know whether they are even, giving the required result that is expected. Now, this is an age of accountability. People no longer roll out money for the sake of rolling out money. You cannot just say 100 people are dying of hunger in so place. People want to see evidence of the money they sent to you. So you need to do program evaluation. Taxpayers want to know whether their social service programs are really worthwhile. You say you are committing so percent to take care of the indigent this, indigent that. People who are paying the taxes want to know the money they are spending is being utilized for the purpose in which they are being released. Program evaluation is important. It is an attempt to assess the extent to which programs reaches its objective. I think that point has been made. It can be done in two levels, formative evaluation and summative evaluation. We explain. At one level, we are now looking at formative evaluation. We can assess the services they provide to each client to be able to understand the effectiveness of the work. So when you look at a client, look at the services that is provided to the clients, the intervention provided for the client. How effective is this work to the client? Is there improvement? You need to measure the impact of programs on their clients. These are the questions that is going to help you to do proper formative evaluation to know whether what you are doing actually impacts on your client. Is there an improvement in behavior? If, for example, you are dealing with a delinquent child, has the child, a child that engaged in truancy, does the child now stays in class? Does the child now write his notes? Does it participate in the test and the continuous assessment? This is the question you need to ask yourself. Is there an improvement in the behavior? If so, what strategies were used? You need to know what was done. If the person is now reading his or her book, is not doing assignment, okay, the person was given a task. Every show, make sure you bring out 1 to 2 hours to be able to do the assignment given to you at home. Was there fair recording and record keeping? The things you do you record them? In development work, anything that is not recorded is not done. If you have opportunity of going to field work, if you did not record what you are doing, it is as good as useless. Then what about the accuracy of information and the suggested treatment? Are you giving information for information's sake? The treatment or the therapy you developed, how accurate are they in addressing the client's problem? Are you one of those people that will meet a client, then when the client leaves, the client gets worse instead of getting better? Then the second type of evaluation is what is called summative evaluation. We need to ask ourselves the question, what are our activities? What did we do? What are our goals? Which goal did we set out for ourselves? So because it is summative, we need to be able to state the activities we engage in. And because it is summative activities, you also need to, what are the goals we set out to achieve? So how were we able to relate the activities we conducted and the goals we achieved? Are we reaching our goal? You now look at yourself. To enroll the child back to school. Have you, is the child enrolled back to school? Is the child going to school after being re-enrolled? You understand? At the end of the term, does the child have a result report card? You now say, when the child now comes home with a report card, you can now beat your chest and now say, yes, we have achieved the first goal, to re-enroll the child back to school. What is the second goal? Are you working on the household to help them get income generating activity? What are the things you need to do? What are the skills that is needed for the caregiver in that family to be able to start up something to support the family? Have they done the training? Has they acquired the skill? What and what have been able to was provided for the person after acquiring the skill? Is there a startup grant to help the person to establish a business? If the person has started, if the person has established a business, you know, how frequent is the person going to the shop or the workshop where he or she is working? Now let us look at some other issues in social work program design. We are making the point that private practices and government agencies, including non-profit organizations, employ social workers in various settings, including health clinics, schools. Because of the break in transmission, I wanted to ask you the different setting or the practice setting of social work. I want to believe you know the practice setting of social work, the hospital setting, the school setting. So I'm making the point that by both non-profit making organizations, private practices, government agencies, employ social workers in various settings, including health clinics, schools, human service agencies, and hospitals. They empower people to overcome challenges by advocating for child welfare, helping underserved communities obtain public services, and connecting individuals and families to needed services for on-point service delivery. It is important to note that as social workers, we need to first understand the key issues or nature of the problem of the client service user before you decide on the method of intervention. So before you design a program for a particular client, you need to know what are the problems of the client. And I will always add, what are the resources within the client system that you can use? Even if it is 20% resources, there must be a resources the client is bringing to the table. The intervention you use must be appropriate to the client. There are places we talk about child appropriate intervention, adult appropriate intervention. It's not the thing you discuss with an adult we are going to discuss with a child because of the age difference, their level of understanding. So the intervention we use must be appropriate to the client and effective for the situation. I've talked about there is no need a client coming to you being worse instead of getting better. Some of the methods of intervention we may use are counseling. It may be family therapy. It may be general interview. It may be data collection. It may be group session. For those who abuse substances, we normally make use of a group session for them, or what is called group therapy, where different people, try to share their knowledge about their experiences, about the rehabilitation, when they are rehabilitated, when they're now taken back to the family, how the family will be able to, continue to stigmatize them and the rest. So you can use group therapy for that kind of a thing, so that those who are undergoing rehabilitation will know that after rehabilitation, they still need to face some challenges at home and they don't need to relapse. At the highest level, practitioners combine their experience with critical thinking. That is what we call common sense. While the era of common sense social work practice is over, because social work needs to be practiced by those who have the necessary skills and knowledge, we we will always apply our critical thinking to the practice of social work. We don't take things at their face level. We don't just take things at the face level. We need to think critically to understand what the problem is. And I always share this experience. During my undergraduates, back then, we were on this field work trip to a welfare agency in the local government where the university is domiciled. So there was this particular couple that came to the social welfare. So when the case is being handled, what the woman was saying is that this man that doesn't know how to take care of a man, he doesn't meet up with his expenses. If he requests for 20,000, the man will not meet up with the financial demand. And he called himself, he was quarreling. So we are like, as student social workers, we naively believed what she was saying. So we are like looking at the man. What is your capacity for the month? He said, we were like, you can actually do this thing. At the end of the day, the man agreed that the amount the woman is talking about is not a problem. But to our greatest surprise, the man was able to provide the money required, but the problem persisted. So it was during the group session we are having in the class, trying to share our experience, that the lecturer now asked us, these people, are they married or are they cohabiting? We said they are married. He now said, okay, no problem, that the next field trip that he's going to join us to the field. So at the end of the day, to cut a long story short, we discovered that at the root of the couple's problem has to do with sexual satisfaction, not necessarily money. But we took money from the face value. But when our lecturer was able to intervene, because at the time, he was like, what is your sexual life like? What is your intimacy? Immediately, he started raising those issues. The man became very uncomfortable. And the woman started, sitting very well, as if to say, this man is now hitting the nail at the head. We are making the point that at the highest level of social work, we need to combine our experience with critical thinking skill to design, evaluate, and implement effective social work programs and policies. Critical thinking. You understand? You cannot be designing an intervention with somebody that abused substance. You cannot be designing an intervention for a client that is abusing drug without taking care of places where the person goes that triggers the person to abuse drug. Critical thinking is required. If you now come, okay, stop taking drug, we do you this, you stay for 3 months, and if you didn't, we call it the places that fans the ember of the problem. You need to, those triggers, those things that can cause triggers, you also need to address them. That is why your experience and critical thinking matters in the design, evaluation, implementation, and effective social work programs and policies. Now, what are the key issues we need to identify in designing a strong and effective social work program? A key task is navigating administrative and organizational hurdles. To be able to design a strong and effective social work program, a very key task is navigating administrative and organization. I've made this point when I was talking about bureaucracy, but there are individuals that are in organizations that are in places that make it extremely difficult for people to access services. So navigating administrative and organizational hurdles, such as government filing, things as simple as filing, filling form, funding, building awareness for a program, monitoring and evaluation, planning for future changes and challenges. You need to identify these key issues for you to be able to design a strong and effective social work program. Whether you are helping people with developmental disabilities, whether you are empowering abuse survivors, those who have survived abuse, whether it is intimate partner violence, whether it is domestic violence, whether it is child abuse, any kind of abuse. So, or whether we are advocating for equal housing access, a social work program typically focuses on key issues. Now, choosing an issue in the planning and design stage can be challenging. Before you choose which one to deal with, it can be challenging. You could come to, for example, you may see a very wretched client. The person is dying of starvation. The person does not have shelter. The person is malnourished, needs medical care. One individual, complex problem. So choosing an issue in the planning and design stage can be very challenging. A good strategy to make the decision process easier includes conducting an assessment to identify the needs and gaps in information and services within a community. Look at the point we are making. We face complex problem and we meet clients with complex problems. So a good strategy for you as a social worker is to make the decision process easier by conducting an assessment to identify the needs and gaps in information and services within the community. There are what we call low-hanging fruits. Low-hanging fruits. Are there ones that the solutions are within the immediate environment? Begin with those ones. Is there a place we can get feeding for the person? Begin with that for a malnourished person. Is there a local hospital that can take care of some of the medical needs? That can provide some first aid before you begin to look for tertiary institution, tertiary health institution that will provide the complex one. Is there a shelter that is available within the community that will serve as a safety net for the clients you are serving? You need to identify the needs, the gaps in information and the services that is within that particular community. It will help you, to know which one to choose and which one to deal with first. Another factor to consider is the resources available to address those needs. Identify the target community most pressing challenges, create opportunity to make the desired impact. So what are the most pressing challenges? As an individual, they say human wants are insatiable. As we are addressing one problem, the person is also having another problem. But you need to know which one are the most pressing challenges. It is in economics that we talk about the scale of preference. I want to believe many of you are conversant with the scale of preference. Your need. You also have a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to prioritize the needs of the client you are serving, the community you want to serve. Prioritize your needs. Which one is the most essential? Which one is the most pressing challenge that they want to solve? And for you to be able to identify the most challenging one, you should be able to work with the people. You cannot just come as a social worker and tell them, I have looked at your community. I think you need a post office, you need a hospital. It may be that their most pressing challenges may be potable water. So you need to work with them. So for you to be able to, successfully identify the key issues, a lot of steps needs to be followed. The first step in program design to follow for you to be able to design a successful program is researching approach. From research, you get researching approach. As social workers, we do a whole lot of research. Social workers research existing programs, which programs are available in the community, to determine an evidence-based approach for addressing the identified need. So that if you know the existing program, it will help you to have an evidence-based approach. You are no longer doing guesswork in addressing the identity because you are working with what is known, what is available. Generally, in social sciences, which social work falls under in many universities, we operate from the known to the unknown. We operate from the simple to the complex. The research we do help us to pull information from sources ranging from interview with stakeholders to peer-reviewed journals, if they are available within the community. Social workers also rely on their professional network to research potential approaches. Look for network. You do networking within the community, professional networking. Try to get information to know if there are other professionals that have worked in that area. Should be able to talk to people who are doing or have done similar work before. If there are those who, if you are carrying a particular program or intervention, there are those who must have done something similar. If you're able to get that information, it yields invaluable insight into the various options effectively and can help program designers avoid potential pitfalls. So based on the experience of those who have worked, you will be able to look at it. What worked well for them? Where needs a kind of rejig, a kind of amendment so that you come out with a better result. The next thing that will help you in program design is what is called determining a viable solution. To make reference to this viable, viable solution. A program designs research page provide critical data for determining a solution. Social workers rely on evidence-based decision to create, implement, and improve social service program. Programs that have been previously implemented and evaluated provide evidence that an approach will work, even if elements have to be adopted to fit the population being targeted with a new program. So if there is a need for you, if, for example, if you have a new target, you're now trying to design the program to be able to suit a new target. Now, if you are conducting a program that has not been done before, this kind of program requires more justification. You need a whole lot of explanation. If you are introducing a program that is like a novel, something that is new to the community, you should be able to do a critical work and analysis to be able to communicate to the people, this is the new thing we are bringing. And this is the impact it's going to make in the community. So in trying to provide something that is novel or something that have not been done before, you may need to consider what is called a pilot program to demonstrate a new approach efficacy. In development work, some people call it baseline study to be able to get some information. You can do a pilot study, select a few individuals, and try the program on them. And from the challenges or the gaps you identify from the pilot study, then you can do what is called, let me look for it. Okay, you can now modify it to suit what you want to achieve. The third thing you need to do to engage in a effective program design is what is called establishing logistics and partnership. Logistics and partnership. Logistical requirements will vary depending on the program. For example, arrangement for a food bank project might involve purchasing supply. You need to put in logistics now. We know what is logistics. Sometimes when we conduct an election in Nigeria, we say that the election failed or the election was mad as a result of logistics. So if you want to conduct an election in a particular place, you must put the machinery in motion. Those machinery you put in motion to be able to deliver a successful election, the transportation of sensitive material, transportation of the human resources that will conduct the election, so that they will arrive in time. Logistics. So if you want to do the same thing in social work programming, have a very successful program design. We are giving an example with a food bank. You might involve a purchasing supply. Where are you going? If you are doing something like a food bank, where and where will you be pulling money to be able to buy food? Who will be supplying the food? Where will you? Where is the store? The storage facility where you can keep those food, so that they will not spoil by the time you store them. Warehouses. finding sourcing partners. If, for example, the transportation is very huge, and the quantity you are getting is not to full length, can you work with somebody who needed similar supply so that you can bring it together? Then you divide the cost of transportation so that you can break even. Who are the distribution partners that will make sure that the food supply you want to introduce get to people that need it? So creating relationship with other agencies and building a champions network is critical for promoting sustainability and attracting private funding and public support. So once we're able to put all these things into this thing, you should have that public support. When people see you, they say, yeah, this person knows what he or she is doing. When people have problems, they will come to you. They can even refer people to be able to access your services. The fourth step in effective program design is what is called raising awareness of program services. Raising awareness. This is the one we know now as social workers. You do sensitization, you create awareness. Effort to raise awareness include elevating an organization profile and getting word out to individuals who will be helped by the program. You begin to meet the beneficiaries of those services. Talk about the intervention, out of school children, unemployed youths, so that you begin to sell your ideas to them. And this is what this program intends to offer. Now, strategies for raising program awareness include traditional promotional activities such as participating in community fairs. If, for example, there is something a community is doing, you become part of the community fair. If there is a sporting activity, you'll be part of it. If there is a festival, you become part of the festival that is going on in that community. You can also distribute printed material in this age. When I pass a lot of places, you see people printing, giving you some printed material, again, trying to communicate to you the services they render. If it is one that catches your interest, you go for it. You can also reach out to media outlets. So communicating the benefits of resources available to the community being served requires careful considering that community needs. For example, effort to reach those experiencing homelessness might require canvassing effort rather than a social media campaign. So, for example, you say somebody is hopeless, you need to meet those people where they are hopeless, under the bridge, on the flyover. Those people may not have access to social media. So you now begin to do campaign on social media, they may not. And the people who have access to social media may not have the courage to go to under the bridge to tell the people that social services exist. So you'll be able, the time will come in your work when you begin to reach out to the beneficiaries of your services directly, wherever their location may be. A very critical step for effective program design is securing grants and funding. Your ability to secure grants, your ability to secure fund for the work we do. Funding can be secured through grants awarded by the federal or state government. A lot of state and government can award grants to be able to execute some programs and some projects. There are non-profit organizations, there are foundations, there are philanthropies. Now, conducting, for you to be able to build that trust, build people's confidence, so that they begin to fund or give you a grant to begin to engage in program design and execution. A critical aspect to it is what is called conducting evaluation, which can help current and future donors understand the program's accomplishment and actual cost of running its operation. Funders these days, those who give grant, always attach program evaluation. What are the mechanisms that you have put in place to be able to evaluate the services that you render? This evaluation will help to highlight the program's efficacy and identifying areas for improvement. You should be able to, yeah, this is the progress we've made. This is the area we think we need improvement. This is so fund we need to be able to actualize this. Evaluation, program evaluation is very key for you that is working in the community to be able to secure grants and funding. Now, you also need to understand when you are doing your program evaluation, which part of the program is working and creating the most impact. There are unintended consequences to consider. Sometimes we develop some intervention and some program without knowing that the interventions and the program may also cause some other problems. You also need to analyze the funds you received. You need to, the more for any penny that is spent on the program, on your program, you need to meet high fiscal standard. You need to justify your cost. Funders may also, those who are funding it may require or inquire about alternative to existing program component to reduce costs. They may begin to look for, is there no way to do things differently so that we have value for the money we are spending? So instead of getting contractors to execute some projects, is it possible you use direct labor so that the cost will be reduced? Then the other money or resources that is saved. So that the other resources that is saved can actually be used for other things. Then the last part of it has to do with the last part of it has to do with measuring and maintaining accountability. It cannot be overemphasized that it is always important that mechanisms should be put in place to measure accountability. You need to be as transparent as possible. People should be able to see what you are doing. It is one of the ways we can build trust. It is one of the ways we can build confidence. And for you to be able to measure and maintain accountability, you need to put in place monitoring methods so that organization can measure outcome against state objective. You say you wanted this objective, these goals, you want to achieve them. Based on your activities and based on your result, they will now measure the outcome against your stated objective. I want to believe we need to make progress. Let us go to social mapping. Mind you, we are talking about social work programming. And we say that in trying to develop a program or do social work programming, we can do that at the 3 levels of social work practice. The micro, the meso, the macro. The 3 of them are interwoven. Any one we are discussing have an impact on the other. Why? Because as human beings, we don't live in isolation. What happens to one also affects others. So let us look at social mapping. Social mapping explores where and how people live and available social infrastructure. I started by saying that social mapping explores where and how people live and the available social infrastructure, things like road, drainage system, school, drinking water facility, etc. All the things in the community, the human beings, so the houses, so the streets, the post office. So when you are the churches, the religious institution, these are, so when you are doing social mapping, these are the things that you find within a particular community. And a social map is something that is made by the local people. You cannot, as a social worker that is working in the community, come and do a social map for the people. Social map is made by the local people and it is not drawn to scale. It contains what the local people believe to be relevant and important for them. Those things the community people believe that is important and relevant to them. It may be, they may decide that the shrine is some of the things that they need to map or some of the things that have influence within their community. The social mapping is an authentic way of determining what the social reality looks like for locals through social stratification. The authentic way of determining what the social reality looks like within a community. From social mapping, you are looking at the community from the local's point of view, from the eyes of the local people, not from the eyes of the social worker who has come to work in the community. Now, in social mapping, villagers map out their village depicting the lanes, the sub-lane, the school, the railway track, the religious place of worship, the post office, the places they go to fetch water, the community hall, the convent in the village, etc. The map may help to determine the educational situation by gender. That is why we say everything that has to do with the community. Is there a stratification between the rich and poor? Is it very wide? Is there a kind of discrepancy between the number of the girl child that go to school and the boy child that go to school? Is there a discrepancy between who drops out of school? Is it the male the boy child or the female child? The social mapping of a community should be able to state these things in clear terms. So community social mapping selects social groups and influential person in the community to help the team make best decisions for possible in terms of selecting at least 3 socially influential groups. So through the social mapping you have conducted, because it includes the group, the youth group, the women group, the men group, the town union, depending. Because we are seeing from the eyes of the community people, we are seeing it. We are looking at the community from the eyes of the locals. They will help you to pick the 3 most influential group. And they can also help 10 influential persons who come to engage in project activity. In every community, there are influential groups, there are influential communities. If you did not do social mapping from the perspective of the locals, you are not going to identify who the influential groups are. You may choose the wrong group. There are some groups that are very noisy and very loud. But when it comes to offering something, they have nothing to offer. So if you decide to choose such group to work with, you may begin to face some challenges. In the same way too, there are individuals that appear very vocal, but in terms of quality, they don't have anything to show for it. But if you do your social mapping properly well, it will help you to identify the top groups that are influential in the community, the top individuals you can work with, or you can engage in project activity to make sure that whatever project you want to start in the community is very simple. Okay. I want to actually know, for those, if you know you have a very strong network, please, I want to hear from you. Somebody is disturbing this class. Who is that person? Prince Worf in Borabari. And brother, can you guys mute your mic? Somebody is saying that they don't have the slide, the materials. I want to know how many of you have access to this material.
I have the material, sir.
You have the material. Where did you get the material from?
Mr. Mbina sent it online.
Yes, they sent it online.
So the person that sent, because I know I downloaded my material too from online. So I don't know why he said that he's sorry that it's not everyone that has the material, like I said. So please, maybe by end of this class, those of you that have the material can repost the material, or maybe I'll ask Mr. Mbina to also repost the material for the benefit of those who don't have the material. I think that settles that.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, community social mapping is conducted in each village or project designated community. Before you begin a particular project in a community, it is always very good that you do your community mapping. And it involves meeting with community leaders or authorities to introduce the project and exercises. This is followed by several exercises to guide discussion and analysis with the several groups in each village. These several groups in each village represent different viewpoints. In some cases, if you have association of people with disability, you can have women group, you can have youth group, you can have pensioners, depending on the structure of that particular community. Now, we want to talk about asset needs and resource assessment. And the first thing I need to talk about is don't confuse social mapping with asset mapping. Please don't confuse social mapping with asset mapping. In order to get it very clearer, I can say that asset mapping is a subset of social mapping. So asset mapping is subsumed because there is no asset you can discover in the community that will not be in the social mapping of that particular community. But try not to confuse social mapping with asset mapping. We start by saying that needs can be defined as the gap between what is and what should be. In the last class, I was talking about development, the ideal world, and the real world. The ideal world is what ought to be. The real world is what is. And I say that the ideal world is towards the extreme right. The real world is towards the left. So the more the real world gets closer to the ideal world, you can now say that development is taking place. So we say that needs can be defined as the gap between what is and what should be. What is and what should be. One is reality. The other one is what should be. A need can be felt by an individual. A need can be felt by an individual, group, or an entire community. It can be as concrete as the need for food. People may have the need for food. People may also have need for water. Or it can be abstract, like improve community cohesiveness. If there are, for example, internal conflicts within the community, those ones you cannot see it, but you can feel the impact. There is unnecessary tension within the community. There is so much bickering. So a need may be that there is a harmonious relationship or a peaceful coexistence between the community members. Now, if we want to look at need, a typical need may be a need for public transportation in the community where other adults have no means of getting around the town. It may be a need.
Sir, we can't hear what you're saying, no. Your mic is on mute. We can't hear you, sir.
As in,
Sir, please unmute yourself. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I don't think he's aware that his mic is on mute.
His mic is not mute Maybe it's network stuff.
There's an issue, yes, because I can't hear anything.
His mic is on mute. Check it. If you check the general group, he's on
His mic
mute.
is on mute. His mic is on mute.
His mic is on
Oh,
mute.
even me too. I cannot hear him.
Try to close it.
Let's just wait a little.
Oh, wow.
I'm
What
sure
kind
it's
of
aware.
thing
I'm
is
sure it's
this
aware.
one?
Please, let's hold on.
So should we
Wait.
wait or
Yes, now we are going to wait now. It's not yet time for the next class, so you have no option.
He's saying thank you, sir. Question.
Oh, wow. I cannot hear him still. Oh, wow. What kind of
just
network?
imagine he's speaking and then he doesn't even know we're not listening.
Hello.
Okay. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hi,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Okay. Hello, sir. I can
These
hear you now.
2 minutes. You can hear me now. Yes. I'm very sorry about that. I needed to attend to a call to my HOD, so I need to
Oh,
mute
okay.
myself. Yes, I need to mute
Okay, sir.
myself. All of a sudden, you people
Okay, sir.
started for very kind network will be this, but it's fine.
No problem, sir.
It's all right. So let's make progress. So I think I've made the point. We don't need to confuse asset mapping with social mapping. I've tried to explain that you know where you have a asset mapping will not be inside your social mapping. So an asset mapping is a subset of a social mapping. So we're trying to, okay, I say that a need may be a public transportation in a community where other adults have no means of getting around town. And I've made the point, depending on the environment where you find yourself. Okay, and now remember that I was saying that if maybe you have like 1 month stretch, about giving you assignment, whether you are living in the city or not, whether you need to call somebody in your village or not, to begin to identify the needs of your various community. I teach indigenous social work, so when I want to give assignment, I am teaching the course of this nature. I want people to go to their villages. If they want to make phone call, that is their business. You tell me your village, your local government, your state, so that I will now have idea of what is happening in that kind of environment. You know, it should also have a way of building my capacity to know what is happening around me. Now, we may see that a community may need a transport where other adults may need to have means of getting around town. More important to these same adults, however, might be a need to be valued for their knowledge and experience around the community that they are as reservoirs of knowledge. So they may feel that the respect that is being accorded them as the elderly is more important to them than that of transportation of moving around. So examining situation closely helps uncover what is truly needed and leads towards future improvement. Examining situation closely helps uncover what is needed and leads towards future improvement. Resources or assets can include individual. Resources or assets can include individual, organizations, and institutions, building, landscapes. There are people that they don't have money, but they have the right connection. If you have any need, all they need to do is to make a call. Somebody will solve your problem for you. There are people like that in the community. They may just be living in their decent apartment, feeding their family. If you call them for 100,000, they will not have. But if you have a challenge, a very serious challenge, if you meet them, they could just make a phone call. They could just write something and give to you to give to somebody. Once you get there, the person solves your problem. Those people may not be very powerful, but maybe because of the skills or the way they have developed themselves, They know where to get what. These are also type of resources. So resources can be equipment, anything that can be used to improve the quality of life. So asset or resources can be include individual, organization, institution, building, landscapes, skills, knowledge, equipment, anything that can be used to improve the quality of life. You know, I have a typical example here. It may be a mother in Ilorin who volunteers to organize game and sport for neighborhood children after school. Through it, the woman is engaging children from engaging in delinquent behavior. So you now see what is this woman doing? He's organizing football for children after school. So children, instead of begin to engage in delinquent behavior, the football or the sports they engage in takes their mind off. And you can now be surprised the way this woman is contributing to building security in that environment. Because the children are not engaged in delinquent behavior, the likelihood for them to engage in crime and criminality will be very low. So when you look at the woman, you may feel that the woman is not contributing anything to the community, but the woman is contributing a very intangible asset to that particular community. Now, resources. Another example I have here is the Abakaliki Farmers Cooperative that makes it possible for farmers to buy seed and fertilizer cheaply and to sell their product directly to market without a middleman. So the resources may be that they are cooperative that makes them to come together, makes them to have access to crops, improve yield cheaply, have access to fertilizer at a very cheap rate. You understand? You now look at it. And they even help, they may even form a cooperative that they can get something, a big vehicle that can move their material or their farm produce without the intervention of the middlemen. So what is the implication? They have value for the farm produce they have because they are not dealing directly with the consumers. Every individual is a potential community asset. All of you that are listening to me, all of you in your various communities, you are a potential community asset. And everyone has asset that can be used for community building. All of you that is listening to me, you are an asset that can be used for community building. So when they are talking about asset, don't go and look at something that is very far. Look at within your environment. You are an asset. Everybody is an asset. The 1-year-old child or 2-year-old child in the family is an asset. If not for anything, they contribute to the happiness of the home. Bring about stability in the home. So that is why when we talk about restoring the dignity and worth of the individual, we believe that every individual is, no matter the condition of that individual. That is why we also make the point we work with the client. The individual is an asset. He has something he's contributing to the society. Asset mapping is a process used to identify individual, group, and community assets that can be put to work on a project. A process used to identify individual, group, and community assets that can be used to be put to work on a project. Individual and group assets are defined as their gifts, their talent, their expertise, their knowledge, their resources. These are assets individuals have. These are assets group have. When mapping community assets, assets are defined as the association, institution, and the economy, physical space that are present in the community. The process of asset mapping begins with bringing together people who have a shared passion or goal, determining what they can contribute towards reaching that goal, and using those assets to begin the work. The group identify assets in the community that are needed to reach their goal, and they engage these additional resources in the work as well. There are different types of assets, but before we go into that, remember I told you that asset mapping is a process used to identify individual, groups, and community assets. So the types of asset mapping that we are going to look at are personal asset mapping, which is individual, associational mapping, which has to do with group, then community asset mapping. First, in personal asset mapping, we must understand that what you personally have to contribute to the project are you as an individual. Even the social worker that is trained is an asset to the community. He's coming with a whole lot of skills and knowledge, practice experience to impact positively on the community. So then you will identify and record the personal asset of other individuals in your group. So when you identify your asset, you identify other people's assets. All these things are personal asset mapping. This person, does he have the contact? Does he have the connection? This person, does he have the financial muscle to make sure that what we want to do, we bring it to fruition? In community work, there are those who have the energy, those who can clear grass. So when you have a project, they say they want to clear a plot of land, they do, because there are human resources that can clear the plot of land. They don't need to pay money to another person. That becomes an asset for that this thing. If you are building a house, do you have bricklayers who can volunteer and come and do bricklaying work? Do you have plumbers who can do plumbing works? These are assets, individual assets that you bring to bear in the execution of projects. So we can identify personal assets of the individual by asking people what they are good at. What are you good at? What they are passionate about. We'll be demonstrating this process. Okay. Now, so these are the ways you can identify individual assets. The second one is the associational mapping. We're talking about type of asset mapping, associational mapping. Associational mapping is identifying and recording the relationship individuals have with different groups in the community. The relationship the different groups have in the community, associational mapping. The relationship between the youth and the women group. The relationship between the women group and the town union is association. The relationship between the town union association and the council of elders. So the relationship individuals have with different groups. The relationship between the educational institution and the religious institution. The relationship between the traditional institution and the government institution or government representatives. These are associational mapping. Now, after identifying individual skills, talents, and passion through personal asset mapping, ask group members about other connections they have in the community. So through those connections the individual have in the community, you now begin to develop your associational mapping. And I've given an example of what associational mapping are. Now you have community asset mapping. People seeking to create new solution or change in the community will be most successful when they build on community assets. Every community have their assets. Some communities are endowed with natural resources. Let me ask you, and we need to open up. Let's just talk for like 5 minutes. Because we need to talk about community. Who will tell me the biggest asset that Nigeria have?
Now,
I want to know the
what
biggest
is the
asset.
biggest asset now?
Yes.
Oil. Okay.
Somebody said oil. Did I hear that person correctly?
Yes, sir.
Oil. Any other person? And this is an adult class, so there is no right or wrong answer. But to conclude, the biggest asset Nigeria have.
Natural resources.
Natural resources. Please don't go to your AI. If you go to your AI, I will not be happy with you. You want to talk? You talk to me. I'm not seeing you. But we can.
I think
So I think
because
oil.
the crude or the
Crude
I
oil.
think crude oil, yes, sir. Crude oil is the
That's the
biggest
biggest asset
asset.
we have.
is part of
Natural
natural resources.
resources. Any other person with a different idea?
Agriculture, sir.
Individual.
Agriculture. Okay. Any other person?
Sir, the human population.
Who is saying
Human
that?
capital.
Celeste and Choi, are you the person saying that?
Someone said something, but I said human capital.
Okay, so let's see. You are the one saying human capital.
Yes, sir.
Then I
Okay.
said human population.
Human population and human capital, they are saying the same thing. That is the biggest resources we have in Nigeria. The human person. The biggest resource. Why do you think US is interested in Nigeria? You think it's because of oil? It is because of the human population. Have you heard that where the people is, there the market is? Where the people is, that is where the market is. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa, is it not? That is why every part of we are interested. China is interested. Everybody is interested because you know that if you're able to penetrate Nigerian market, you are going to sell. The biggest resource of every nation is the human person in that particular nation. Crude oil is good. Natural resources, gold is good. Bitumen, all those things, they are good. But it is the human resources that is going to tap these resources and make them useful for the welfare of the human being. So the human resources is the biggest resources we have. So we say that people seeking to create new solutions or change in the community will be most successful when they build on community assets, strength and successes. So you start with the individual because it is the individual in the community that have the skills, the knowledge to transform some of the natural resources to something tangible that can solve human problem. So there are natural resources. There are some communities you go to, they have gold. You come to Enugu, you have coal. You go to places like Ebonyi, I think they have, what they have in Ebonyi? I think in Osun State, they have gold. Zamfara, they have gold. There are places they have bitumen, have cement, and some other places. So community asset mapping is identifying and recording the people. Look at it. Community asset mapping is identifying and recording the people, the places, businesses, organizations, and interrelationship within the community that will help your projects. So when you identify the people, look at the first thing they mentioned here, the people, the human person, the biggest resource you can think of. You have AI, it was developed by human beings, is it not? Robot, it was developed by human beings. So why do you now think that the crude oil is just a product, is it not? Now human beings now develop it to PMS, develop it to kerosene, develop it to gas. So the community asset mapping is identifying and recording the people, the places, the businesses, organization, and interrelationship within a community that will help your project. Once these are identified, the next step is to determine the motivation of these resources that might make this group support the identified projects. Now, why is it important to develop a plan for assessing local needs and resources? What do you think we need to assess local needs and resources? There are really two questions. The first is why assess needs and resources? Why do we need to assess the needs and the resources? The needs are the gaps that exist. The resources are the things that are available that you can use. So why do you need to assess the needs and the resources that are available? The first reason is that it will help you to gain a deeper understanding of the community. When you assess the needs and the resources, you fully understand the community. Will the resources that is available within the community help the community to solve the problem? Or do they need to go outside to require more resources to solve their problem? The resources in the community, can it solve a problem of another community? Each community has its own needs and assets. I've made that point clear and clear again when we're working with our client. Our client have their needs, our client have their assets. So when you are working with community have their needs, community also have their assets. So each community has its own needs and assets, as well as its own culture and social structure. A unique web of relationship exists. History, strength, and conflict that defines it. What we call dynamics that happens in the community. A community assessment helps to uncover not only the needs and resources, but the underlying culture, the culture of the people. We say that culture is the way of life of the people. The food they eat, the way they dress, the way they speak, the way they greet, their hospitality nature, the way they accept strangers. All these things will help you to understand how to address the community needs and be able to utilize its resources. That is why you assess community needs and resources. The second point is that assessment will encourage community members to consider the community asset and how to use them. Sometimes some of these community assets may be there. The community may not even know that they have this asset. For example, the way some of you were responding about crude oil and about natural resources, some of you don't even realize that the member that you are a human being, that you are the biggest resource that is required. That is why sometimes when you see people, they operate on an individual basis, problem seems to overwhelm them. But when they collectively mobilize their resources, they begin to solve that problem that looks very insurmountable. So assessment will encourage community members to consider the community's assets. They will even know that these assets exist. They may not even know. Even with your skill and your expertise, some of those resources they use, they may be using them at their substance level, at their local level. But with the social worker, with your experience and your knowledge, you can expand the use of those resources to a very complex level, a level where international organizations, community, people outside the community will begin to pick interest in what is happening in that community as a result of the assets that exist in that community. So it helps community members to consider the community assets and how to use them, as well as the community needs and how to address them. That consideration can be in their learning how to use their own resources to solve their problem and improve community life. So by knowing those resources, they now begin to, how can we use these resources to improve our life? We even have these resources and we are suffering. How can we use these resources to begin to solve our problem? The third point is that it will help them make decisions about priorities for program or system improvement. It will be obviously be foolhardy to try to address community issues without fully understand what they are and how they approach. So when you assess local needs and resources, you want to know how does this problem come about. By the same token, failing to take advantage of community resources not only representing taking on a problem without using all the tools at your disposal to solve it. Remember, I've talked about low-hanging fruit. When you want to deal with a problem, look at the ones that are available that can solve the problem. You operate from the simple to the complex, from the known to the unknown. That is why when something happens, people take a first aid to know whether the first aid will deal with the problem. If it is something, if you have a headache that can be cured with paracetamol, you can buy paracetamol. You don't need to go and do surgery to be able to take care of a headache. That is the point we are making. So that you don't begin to engage in some very costly interventions that can be simply solved. Also, assessing local needs and resources goes a long way towards eliminating unpleasant surprises down the road. Identifying needs and resources before starting a program or initiative means that you know from the beginning what you are dealing with. You are not going to be taken unawares. When you identify the resources, the needs, you now know whether the resources is commensurate enough to solve the problem. If it is not commensurate enough to solve the problem, you begin to look at where again can we source for resources. You plan. There is a popular saying that he who fails to plan to fail. So assessing local needs and resources helps you to plan. Have a plan B. I always like that alternative viable option. Always have a plan B. That is what we are used to. You are doing something, you say you have a plan B to be able to deal with the challenges or the problem you are dealing with. The second question we need to ask ourselves is, why develop a plan for that assessment? Why do you need to develop a plan for that? Why do you? I've made the point, he who fails to plan, plans to fail. So